What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode here on the Digital Classroom Dental Podcast, where I'm spending time with some of the amazing educators in the industry. And I'm very excited to be here live at the Dental and Medical Insurance Extravaganza in Las Vegas. Christina Taxon has put together a great event. We've got some awesome speakers. We've got a lot of great vendors that are here sharing their thoughts and ideas. And so wanted to bring on this afternoon onto our podcast, Ben Tuine. Did I say that right?
That's perfect.
Excellent.
John.
All right.
Thanks.
Very, very important that I want to say that right. And Melissa Dunham, and they are both from Veritas. Ben also did a CE course this afternoon or what have you. So wanted to bring both of them on and have them talk about some of the exciting things that they're doing with their company, but also have Ben talk a little bit about the CE course that he presented and things like that. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
Yes, it is.
It's a fun event.
Very
Thank you so much
pleasure.
for coming on. All right, so Ben, if you would start us off a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. So a little over 10 years ago, I got involved in working with a dental group in Arizona. And that's really where I learned what I know about dentistry today in terms of PPOs, insurance negotiations, coding, and the like. Way back then, I recognized that there was an opportunity. I was trying to find somebody that had experience in negotiating reimbursements with insurance companies, and I couldn't find anybody that had any experience. There was no company out there, and it seemed to be a craft that wasn't really yet developed in the industry. And so I decided to leave this corporate group to start a PPO fee negotiating company. It wasn't Veritas, it was Optimum Dental Solutions back then. And what I found is just a wealth of opportunity in the dental industry in this space. Not many people knew how to negotiate fees. In fact, there's another company called Unlock the PPO, and they do amazing work there. And what I'm finding is that they started at the same time we did. And what I'm finding there is that the service itself in terms of PPO fee negotiating just exploded. There was such high demand. You know, fast forward 10 years later, there's still only a handful of companies that do this, and the demand is still very high. So I come from American Samoa, where, you know, they mentioned my warrior background. Most Samoans are in the, you know, that you know of, are playing the NFL. You know, they have that warrior mentality. Yes. But in insurance, well, in the dental industry, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but Jordan, my good friend Jordan Comstock, who's my podcast co-host, he's been having me do the Maori haka, the kamate haka, as a way of showing people how to negotiate with insurance companies. So, you know, coming from this small island in the South Pacific and moving to the United States, going to school here, college here, and then starting a business out of Salt Lake City, Utah, it's been very fulfilling to provide and give something back to the industry that is needed and that's relevant to dental practices. And then where Melissa comes in. So Melissa, I'll let you talk about your background, but let me brag about her for just a second. Melissa, her husband's a dentist, Tom Dunham, Dr. Dunham in Virginia Beach, $2 million practice. And I came across Melissa through our podcast. She was a listener and she contacted us, and I looked through her history, and I was just so amazed that all the things that we deal with on insurance administration in the dental practice, she's solved. And she has what I refer to as the keys in unlocking all these insurance-related struggles. And she's been in it for 25 plus years. And so I invited her to be a part of what we do in the public lectures across the country, be a part of our curriculum, so that when we negotiate fees for insurance carriers, she cleans it up on the back end by making sure that whatever's billed to insurance in terms of the negotiated rates are actually being paid. Right. So Melissa, your turn.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's a really fabulous introduction. So he's like a good pal. But yeah, so I think what I find, and I found also there was a need, and it was very easy to discover, is that a lot of practices did not know their rights. They didn't read their contracts. They didn't understand that the reference guides were published out every year, and there was valuable information in those that would make their front desk jobs easier and stifle a lot of the adjustments they're just running rampant, basically making sure that providers are almost insuring the nation, not the other way around. Right. So then I had also developed just a system for putting that into place. I talk pre-authorizations all day long. It's not for the patients. It's basically for the practice. If the insurance company comes back and pays, it's cherry on top. Mm-hmm. Great. We're just using the information that's in there, processing how these are going to cover certain situations or treatment. And we put it save it into their practice management systems. A lot of offices need to understand how to put those information into their systems so that they can track the information and then it can serve multiple patients within their practice. So there's a lot of systems that we put into place, review a lot of their forms, but pre-authorizations are where it's at, and you've got to do it, and it saves so much money and effort and time. It's hand over fist. You just can't go wrong with it.
We ran out of time today,
Yes.
but a lot of people don't know the power of the pre-authorizations. And a state like California, there's other states that have a law that say if you receive a pre-authorization, the insurance company cannot deny the treatment. And I was hitting myself in the head, like, it can't be that easy. It can't be that easy, but in reality, the concept is very simple. The pre-authorizations are power in terms of outlining everything you need to understand what's going to be covered, what's not going to be covered, so that the patient know what they're going to be paying to. But what Melissa's knowledge and background is on all the aspects of insurance administration, it greatly complements what we do on a PPO coaching and fee negotiating side, because too many times you negotiate fees for offices and they get a number of denials, and so those fee schedules just become useless.
Right.
You know.
Right. So two quick questions along those lines. The first is when it comes to pre-auth, it seems to me, and this might be a bold statement, that the reason why it seems so simple, Ben, was because there wasn't people that were taking the time to share why they thought what was the real reason, right? What was the dental reason in order to be able to make that claim? And it's like for years that just was accepted, that as long as the dental practices are not sharing that with us, we're not going to authorize it. Is that a correct
I think
statement?
the reason why it's not been a profound need, or practices don't feel like it's needed, is because over the last 15 or 20 years of dental consulting, they've all told them it's the wrong thing to do, and that it delays treatment. There's all these myths that go with it, rather than, and then they'll have them do eligibility for all these patients. I know some practices, they're paying $3,000 a month just to get verification eligibility on patients that may never come into the schedule.
And never doesn't even guarantee that
That's right.
the insurance is going to cover the work anyway.
And they say it's not a coverage, that it could be not a verification of coverage. Well, neither is a pre-auth, but you have a lot more ground to go back on to if you have that. And now that we've been pre-authorizing mostly in our practices and a couple other practices, we're getting our pre-authorizations turned around in 3 to 4 days. And I hardly have zilch in denials.
Right. Right.
And my treatment acceptance is through the roof. I have a 97% treatment acceptance rate. And I put out maybe, I think it was what was the last month? 26 or 36, I can't remember the magic number of statements. It was so low, I probably don't even need to have a statement service anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like just by putting focus on this, you found a way to be able to make the pre-auth process faster.
You've got to get your pre-auth, and you have to
Efficient,
put it in your systems to serve your system. You're also fueling your practice management system with all this data.
Right.
You're building this information powerhouse that serves you hand over fist. So it's not just the pre-auth. And there's a lot of waivers. Not a lot of waivers. There's actually a really well-worded waiver that works well for me and a couple other practices. You put that on your treatment plan, patients sign it, you're free. The insurance mindset is taken over. And people just feel like these insurance companies are the boss.
Right.
They're not. We're just people that do business with them. They have no reflection in our business whatsoever.
Right.
We just need to help our patients and give them the golden question to how much does it cost? We don't know. How are we supposed to know? So we give it back to the insurance company the way it should be.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things that I was curious about, Ben, was like you said, when you went down this path and you started to realize that, wow, there was not a lot of people that were doing this. I'm always curious as the why. You know, there's always a reason why, especially it didn't exist, but then you'd shared that, that now there's a huge need for it and where that's going. So.
Yeah, I think for many years, John, dental practices were sort of on the defense with insurance. Even today, insurance carriers employ some of the most impressive business tactics to the dental industry, especially with pre-authorization. Most other areas of medicine, you have to do, they do pre-authorizations.
Absolutely.
We're the only ones that do.
Right. And so what I found, even on the PPO fee negotiating side of things, is that insurance carriers have done a great job at keeping dentists and their team members distracted from fee schedules, pre-authorizations and all of that. So 10 years ago, when I found that there was an opportunity to build this nice business to offer a fee negotiating service, today, 10 years later, it's a wonderful business. You know, I'm on my third company, and fortunately, it's blessed our lives and our families really well. And then I look at what Melissa does, and this is another area that is just not focused on. Dentists don't do pre-authorization because the number one concern is it takes too long.
Sure.
How long does it take for you to get a pre-auth?
3 or 4 days now.
Right.
You got to get the insurance carriers in the habit of understanding how you do business. You know, they create these nice profiles on each practice. Every time you submit a claim, they store that data. And they use that data against the practice to keep the practice, again, distracted.
Right.
And that's just my professional
Sure,
opinion.
sure.
You know, in any aspect, whether it's war, whether it's political strategy, when you keep your opponent distracted, you'll win. You can do
Right.
so many amazing
Exactly.
things.
Yeah.
And that's the struggle with dentistry these days. I think a lot of the people here at this conference that work for insurance carriers have really good hearts. But unfortunately, they don't write the policies in terms of the executive level on how to engage the dental community in the way that it's engaged right now. So 10 years ago, fee negotiations was an unknown topic. It is a very hot topic today and very well pushed in the community. In my opinion, this is the next thing. The pre-authorizations, as it continues to build 10 years from now, a lot of practices are going to report exactly what Melissa does in terms of eliminating the insurance administration hassles. So I'm excited to have Melissa be a part of our team because I really believe that this is going to be the way of the future in just using what's already there.
Right.
All these policies exist, but we don't know about them because we're distracted. Insurance carriers have done a great job keeping us away from the policies.
Ben, would you not also say that like just the heavier influx of third-party payers, that's also created this need for PPO negotiations?
Right.
Because you can play that game all you want, and until you get lined out, you're still going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul.
That's right.
And that pre-authorizations, I think a lot of times too, it saves so much frustration on that end because when you send a pre-auth in for, let's say you came in for wanted a crown, well, then I look on there and your pre-authorization comes back. The fee schedule's wrong. I'm like, well, what fees? Well, they assign connection now because they changed their client list. So your treatment plan would have been off. But they didn't tell me that their client list changed. And the client lists are sort of, I think, nondescript. For instance, on DHA Sun Life, it's UCCI, but that's only alliance members only. So there's all this really, pre-authorizations can take the mystery out for staff and make their jobs a lot easier and cut that financial frustration talks off with patients. I mean, I don't have ugly discussions with my patients anymore. It's like I said,
Because you know.
It's very direct.
Right.
we don't hardly put out statements. They pay, they're
Right.
happy, they still do the treatment.
Sure.
They still do the
Because
treatment.
they know how their insurance is used.
Yes.
Because it's all outlined in their pre-authorization and benefit summary. I
And you've given them that answer.
It's like making a
wanted to
reminder
do-
of like, watch me, here you go, watch my left
Right.
hand, right, here I go, here it comes, here it comes.
That's
How was it, I'm curious, Melissa, with your practice, where you've had some great success with this, of getting everybody on board to build pre-auths into your practice? Like when you, right, like how was it before you started that and once you figured it out and then you brought them along? Because it sounds like that's where you guys are going next, is to get a lot more practices to do that. They're not used to it.
It's about 6 or 7 years ago, I think, is when I actually decided we were going to do this for every treatment. And the reason that we did is because I couldn't understand the ball game anymore. Like insurance was predictable at one point.
Right.
Well, it became very unpredictable. And I just didn't want to go there. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take all the gloves off. So what we did was we went back 6 to 9 months, we went back to January 1st of that year, and we pre-authorized all unscheduled treatment. And what we found is we were so busy doing all that treatment when we got that stuff in, we didn't have openings for a while. And it was a madhouse. And plus, on top of that, so we went backwards and pre-authorized everything, and then we were pre-authorizing anything new diagnosed. And I got to say, the first couple of months, it did take a little bit to get them back.
Right.
But we were learning.
Right.
Well, you can what we learned is that you can send the primary and the secondary at the same time. And why I had a late eureka moment on that, I have no idea. So,
Sure. Because one was primary, one was secondary, right? Maybe you just
were
thought
just
that's
in
what it was
the
supposed to be.
groove of
Yeah.
doing it, but you can send them on the same time, and you can. The beautiful part is you can send the same NEA. You don't have to do any extra work, and if you do the treatment during the authorized time, then you don't have to send anything new. You just write the pre-authorization number on the claim.
Right.
There's no extra information to
Yep.
send. And it's fabulous.
I love this, and for a couple of reasons. I spent a couple of years working with dental practices, and it blew my mind when one of the first things I did was dig into the unscheduled treatment, right? And there was all this focus on new patients, which always should be there. But when I saw the amount of patients, the thousands of patients, and the millions of dollars of treatment, and it was often that the practice would say to me, John, we want to do this. It's not like the practice didn't want to do it. Maybe they'd get caught up in things and they weren't able to get back to the patients. They wanted to do it, but it was always that, well, insurance is only going to cover so much. I mean,
How do they
I'm
know
not saying
that?
anything you guys don't know that, right? But it was like that's always what the thought process was. And so I think that to see what you guys are doing where you're breaking the ice a little bit, and I think this is a huge obstacle, as you very well know, that can really move things ahead for practices, for patients. It's pretty
Enormously
exciting.
so.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah, it takes time. You know, the fear and when Melissa's not with me, when I'm out, like yesterday, I was at the Utah Dental Association giving a speech on PPO fee negotiations, and I talked about pre-authorizations, and the common concern is it takes too long. Most people say it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get a pre-authorization back, and that's simply because the lack of history in submitting those pre-authorizations. Insurance carriers, they understand. They build profiles on practices. So for Melissa's practices, you know, I'm sure in the very beginning it was a little bit of a struggle. But just like marketing, like I hear people implement marketing ideas after the first month, they can it.
Right.
And that's a big mistake because you have
Absolutely.
no momentum going.
Absolutely.
And so just with this as well, when you implement the policy, you stick through it even with the struggles because you will eventually master the concepts.
Right.
And Melissa's practice is now one of several that I know that implement this policy, many of which have just recently implemented it this year. Same thing. The the return on the pre-auths have gone from 3 weeks down to 3 days. In that way, you know, it accommodates the doctors and the timeline in which they want to deliver care to the patients, but the guesswork is out. And now all the work that you've done on negotiating fees, you know exactly what the insurance carrier is going to pay. When they deny it, what happens?
Oh, well, I like when they deny stuff. When they deny stuff or it's a non-covered service or they just say it's non-billable or it's not required, well, then you put a nice little couple paragraph waivers that I formulated and has been approved. And we put that on our treatment plan for the patient that they signed that day, that they're coming in for treatment. It's kind of a no-brainer. Now that it's a non-covered service or it's just flat out denied, the patient's either A, pay to your fee, or
Right.
if you want to, you can negotiate the fee with the patient at this point.
Right.
And you're not in violation of any sort of contract with it keeps that relationship back to you, and it keeps the insurance where it puts them back in their place where they should be.
Sure.
And a nice division line between us and a insurance company that patient has. I'm not knocking the insurance companies.
Right.
I just don't think they should have any jurisdiction over our business. Their business is theirs and ours is ours.
Which is interesting because I remember hearing things like the big mystery when patients never really knew what a lot of treatment cost. Right? There was always this joke that it's not like you're going to McDonald's, you go to your dental practice and the cost of a Big Mac is $3.45. Like you don't go to a dental practice to see Crown and then what the price is, right?
Right.
And so it was always a big mystery. And you always would think about that is, wouldn't it be great, to your point, Melissa, if there could be a business negotiation between the practice and the patient? Insurance just
There is.
happened to get in the way of that because you couldn't do anything along those margins. And so now it seems like that really makes a difference.
Well, you could have all along, but
Right.
we just, no one, it's in the reference guides. And if we just pay attention to that and know what our business, what our rights are
Sure.
within that business agreement, we could have been doing this all along.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for about 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
With a great amount of success.
Yeah.
So your course today, 7 steps in negotiating fees with insurance companies. What
Yes.
were a couple of the topics that you hit on that you think that
Yeah.
were really beneficial that people can take back next week and really implement into their practice?
Right. You know, we had some insurance people in the room today, like we normally have when my name's on the speaking docket and they see my topic, and so you have the director of Delta Dental that's in there. But it was nice to see that there's some coordinated efforts with insurance carriers and the dental side. It was really nice to see that happening today. But in terms of the actual content of the 7 steps, you know, I always recommend that before you even engage in negotiations, just like before you even seat a crown, you diagnose a crown, then what's next? You do the crown prep. And if that crown prep requires a buildup, that crown will not seat without the buildup. There's no foundation. And this is one thing a big mistake that I see in many dental practices is they engage in negotiations blindly. They go in and they start to try to negotiate, but they're not prepared.
Right.
When the insurance carrier sends you a fee schedule, they send you an increase on all the codes that don't matter to you. And the practice is like, sweet, 30% increase on nothing. We don't even bill these these procedures to insurance.
It's okay.
Sorry, excuse me.
Hey, it's an adult show.
Right. So the prep is key. You have to prepare for negotiations, just like any legal case. You're accused of murder and you're innocent.
Right,
Your
right.
attorneys they're gonna prepare.
Right.
And part of that is understanding just the basics, where your standard fees are. I mean, if you're in the 40th percentile and you want to negotiate, you're going to have a tough time influencing insurance carriers to raise rates if you want to stay at the 40th percentile. Your top codes. What alternative benefits are being used by the insurance carriers, even if you don't carry like amalgam, which is a common alternative benefit for posterior crowns. Most employer plans by insurance, they don't cover them. But you still need to negotiate those downgrades that you don't carry in an effort to help the patients with their out-of-pocket.
Right.
And so once you do that properly, you do your preparation, the negotiations from there are so easy because every question you get from an insurance carrier, you can pull from your arsenal of what you prepared, and you can respond in an educated way rather than respond with deer in the headlights. Did I say that right? Deer in the headlights?
You did.
Sorry.
Yes.
That's right.
I'm from third world country, so I speak English well, but it's not my first language. Neither are the idioms and all the isms. And then the other thing, John, is that you just have to prepare. You have to follow through with it, because I hear horror stories with practices negotiating fees, and then never ever getting an effective date, but using that fee schedule, thinking that this is what they need to use to collect out of pocket from patients. Again, not doing pre-auths, not the guesswork, and overbilling patients, and then getting dinged from it by both regulators and the insurance industry. And this presentation is actually available all over the internet. I mean, if you go to sayno2ppos.com, one of the very first early podcast episodes, you can find all the steps to negotiations on that website. Dr. Mark Costa's podcast, which many people know. The True Dental Success Institute, the second ever podcast episode was about fee negotiations. So check out the True Dental Success podcast as well, and this one too. Now that
I love it. I love it. Sharing the love.
Right.
Yeah, love Mark Costas. Great podcast. Yeah, so that's cool.
Very
So
fun.
yours was the second. It was the second episode.
I was so lucky because he called me and he says, I have a podcast. Here I'm thinking, oh, great. He has this gigantic, my wife hates the word ginormous.
Yeah.
He has this huge listener base. And, I'm thinking that I'm going to be maybe episode 3,000.
Yeah.
And when it publishes, I was number 2.
Right.
Now he's.
But look at it now. And,
Right.
and you said something interesting that I want to come back to about marketing. And I'm so glad that you said that, because I think in a lot of cases you're right. That people's patience meter when it comes to those things, you have to give it time.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy for us to think, but if you really think back to so many of the big brands, even some of the more technology brands like Amazon and Google, I mean, if we all think back, there was a time not too long ago when we did not know those companies. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, when they first came out, it was you did not know, and things just take time. And I love the comment you made about the learning curve, and I think with the education, especially what you guys are doing, a lot of these practices are going to be able to make great progress. So
Absolutely.
so.
it's awesome. It's awesome stuff.
Absolutely.
Some fun questions.
Sure.
Yeah.
Here we
Okay.
go.
Got some good ones. Got some good ones.
We're ready.
So this one's for you, Ben.
Okay.
So TSA, right? You travel pretty frequently.
Yes.
Okay. So if you got called upon to be the TSA guy, like the one that comes up and down, that's getting everybody prepared to put their stuff on the cart, right?
Right.
What type of TSA guy would you be? Would you be the quiet, the very kind of to the point, just what have you, or would you be making sure everybody in security knew what to do as far as taking their laptops out?
Right.
How would you approach that?
I would be the goofy, make people laugh, comment on what they're wearing. I'd be that type of guy.
Yes.
Because when I go through TSA, I always wear funny shirts. Like yesterday, I wore a shirt, the genie, that says,
like it.
"I'm here. What are your other 2 wishes?" And then the other shirt that I wear through the airport is Hercules. He's flexing his muscle, and it says, "I love," something along the lines, I would flex, but I love this shirt.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And the TSA agents, they laugh at that. Yeah. And it puts people at ease because traveling is such a stress, even through TSA. It is so freaking hectic. It is. You go through Clear, and it looks like you have a better time through Clear, but TSA, even pre-check, I would be the agent that would calm the nerves of travel.
I love that.
Keeping them laughing. Yeah. I'd probably get fired, like
I would hope
in a week.
Exactly. Right. I mean, the travelers, we would like that, right? I mean, it would
Some
be
of them
like
have zero personality.
it's true.
And then I would do
It's
the
a tough
haka.
job.
You know,
It is a tough job.
It's a tough thing. If you think about it, people coming in 5 a.m, not happy.
Yeah.
You know, people that never traveled before. It's tough. So it would be good to have somebody with a little humor.
I'd probably do the haka.
Yeah.
Just to warm people up in the morning, and that would guarantee be my last day at working for TSA.
Excellent.
I don't know. They might keep you on.
Yeah.
Like scare everybody into shape.
Scaring all the passengers.
Everybody gets the.
All right. So how about you? So how about your favorite concert of all time?
Oh. Okay, so a long time ago, my very good friend took me to. Wait, that wasn't your question. Favorite concert of all time. I love Rod Stewart. So my husband, for one of our first couple dates, took me to a Rod Stewart concert.
Love it.
And I was singing, so he didn't run him off. Maggie May, all of it. That was there a trick question? Was there a back end?
No,
okay.
no. You said Rod Stewart. I thought of the name. I mean, it's
Rod
like
Stewart.
one of the best opening lines in any song ever. Maggie May. It's
awesome.
It's great. So sweet.
Rod, if you're ever here.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you travel a lot, like we said. Any place that you haven't been that you want to go to?
Gosh, I'm a homebody. When I started my career, I loved the thrill of travel. I've been to every state. I've been to most of the popular scenes. So I guess I'm going to give you a boring answer that I actually dread traveling now.
Sure.
I prefer to be home with my son. I prefer to go with him. The evening activities. Right now we have a theme, Corn Bellies and Thanksgiving Point, our Silicon Slopes. I like doing that. But if there is a place that I wouldn't mind going back regularly, would be to the Big Island of Hawaii. Yes. Unfortunately, they don't ever have conventions there, and they don't even ever have study club meetings I'm ever invited to.
And it's the biggest island.
It's the biggest island,
right? I mean, everybody always wonders that. Why is it that Oahu and Maui get all the traffic and the Big Island's the biggest? Everybody always wonders that. They're like, why is it the Big Island?
I have no idea. Hilo used to be an international airport. Now it's down to a regional airport. Now Kona's the only international airport. Right. But people are missing out because of the Hilo side, the windward slope where it's green, rainforest. It is so beautiful, and you have so much space to build. Yeah. And it's just, I guess I'm biased. That's where my mom is from. Right. I love going back to Hilo because I just, all around, it's a beautiful place.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about your favorite day of the week?
Mondays.
Wait, Monday's when all the insurance checks come in. So
oh, there you go.
I like that day.
And payoffs are done on Friday. So, it's Friday.
Everything's done in.
Right.
And I would say it's Friday. Yeah. Friday we go out on the boat with the kids. We have fun. Neighborhood cookouts. Hello, Lagomarians. Yeah. And it's a easy day. Friday is everyone's favorite day.
Yeah. All right. So final question, Ben. Going through creating these businesses, working as an entrepreneur, doing what you've done, a couple of ideas or tips for anybody in dentistry or not dentistry, but just entrepreneur in general, and some of the things that you've learned along the way that you would pass on to somebody that wants to start a company, and a lot of the things that you've learned.
Absolutely. So being an entrepreneur is not easy, as you know, especially when you're in the early stages of building a business, that it is way too tempting to quit when things are not looking up. The fact is that even when you are successful, you will have emotional ebbs and flows. You'll start to see fewer patients 1 month. And if you can't keep your emotions in check, some people just go crazy and they go nuts because they can't deal with the emotions of being a business owner. But the critical stages is the early stages of business. I say the first 18 months of business are critical. Be patient. If you need to bootstrap it, bootstrap it. If you need to live on food stamps, do that. Right. But don't be ashamed because don't enter the business space thinking you've made it on day one. Right. Because I will tell you, when you enter that with lack of humility, when you're early in your business career, you won't last long. Your expectations are way too high for you to meet.
Yeah.
Set reasonable expectations, be humble, but don't ever give up. Be patient, be committed, and just stick to it. And hard work pays off. Smart hard work pays off even more.
Absolutely. Well, and I like to ask the entrepreneur question because I think I personally still look at dentistry and dentists as entrepreneurs.
Right.
I mean, it didn't always look like that. And certainly there's been a big trend, as we all know, group practices and things like that. And there certainly is a place and a need for a lot of people that want to do that. Still, if somebody wants to hang their own shingle and start out on their own, right? I mean, it is a tough road, but there certainly are a lot of great resources out there nowadays, more so than there ever was, to help people. So love that advice. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on. This has been awesome. Love what you're doing.
It's been our pleasure.
And good luck the rest of the weekend.
Thank you, John.
All right,
Thanks,
take
John.
care.